Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, can I first of all thank the Right Honourable Lady for her response. But, Mr. Speaker, I think the whole country, if they listen to a response, they will be pretty astounded by the tone that she has taken. And she talked, first of all, she started talking about the reason for Mr. Assange's arrest, and tried to come up with all sorts of justifications herself, which have nothing to do with the reason. The reason Mr. Assange has been arrested is because he failed to surrender to a UK court. That's why he's been arrested, and there was a provisional arrest warrant which is subject to extradition proceedings, but that is usual procedures under UK law, and there's no one in this country that is above the law. And the Right Honourable Lady, who we should remember wants to be the Home Secretary, is suggesting that we should not apply the rule of law to an individual. That's right, she's disagreeing sitting from her position, but she is implying, she's saying actually quite clearly that Mr. Assange should be not subject to UK law, and that is something that should worry any British citizen should she ever become Home Secretary. I will. She can intervene later if the Speaker allows her. That's possible. But I do wish to finish my comments in response to hers. She also talked about the UN, as though the UN had some opinion on this, and I'm sure it's not intentional, but she would be at risk of not giving quite correct information, Mr. Speaker, because the UN has no view on the Assange case. I think what she was actually referring to was the view of a group of independent persons that have decided to look at this case. They do not speak for the UN in any way whatsoever. It's a small group of individuals who came up with a deeply flawed opinion, suggesting that somehow Mr. Assange was indefinitely detained in the UK by the British authorities, when in fact the only person responsible for Mr. Assange's detention is himself. It was entirely self-inflicted, and it's astonishing the Right Honourable Lady should even bring up that report and suggest somehow that it was a UN view or a UN report. And then the Right Honourable Lady talked about the US request for extradition. I won't be drawn into the request for extradition. It's rightly a matter for the courts. Should the courts deem it correct and necessary at some point to send it to me as a request for extradition, I will consider it appropriately under our laws. But, Mr. Speaker, I note that the Shadow Home Secretary, both today and in the past, and indeed the leader of the opposition, have defended Assange and WikiLeaks from efforts to tackle their illegal activity. They could have clarified that today for the British public. The Right Honourable Lady could have done that on behalf of the opposition, and she didn't. So why is it, Mr. Speaker, that whenever someone has a track record of undermining the UK and our allies and the values we stand for, you can almost guarantee that the leadership of the party opposite will support those who intend to do us harm? You can always guarantee that from the party opposite.